A zebra gives birth standing up. 15 minutes later, her foal is on its feet, wobbling toward its first meal. An octopus mother lays her eggs, guards them for months without eating, and lets nature handle the rest. Now picture a human birth. Hours of labor, sometimes days, a body pushed to its absolute limit. A process so risky that for most of history, it was one of the top ways women died young. Here's the question nobody really stops to ask. Evolution is supposed to be ruthless. It fixes what's broken, it weeds out what doesn't work. So why, after millions of years, did it never fix this? Why does the one moment that matters most to survival, bringing the next generation into the world, still feel like the body's biggest gamble? Stick around, because the answer isn't a flaw. It's a trade humanity made a long time ago, and we're still paying for it every single day. Rewind about 4 million years. Our ancestors made a choice that changed everything. They stood up, 2 legs instead of 4. It sounds simple, but it rewired the entire skeleton. And the part that took the biggest hit was the hip. Think about it like this: a 4-legged animal carries its weight spread out, front to back, like a table on 4 legs. Stable, roomy, easy to build a wide-open path for a baby to come through. But balance on 2 legs, and suddenly your whole skeleton has to stack directly on top of itself like a tower. To make that work, the hips had to pull in tight and narrow. That trade paid off big time. Standing upright meant free hands for tools, less sun on the skin, and legs that could cover huge distances without burning through energy. But it also quietly built a bottleneck exactly where a baby needs to pass through. For a long time, nobody noticed, because the brains coming through that bottleneck were still small. That was about to change. Around 2 million years later, something wild happened. The human brain started growing, fast, eventually settling in at roughly 3 times the size of our early ancestors' brains. That growth is the reason you're capable of language, planning, invention, art, basically everything that makes us human. But here's the catch nobody planned for. The skeleton never got the memo. The hips were already locked into their narrow, upright walking shape. And now there was a much bigger head trying to fit through a passage that had already been downsized. Picture trying to shove a soccer ball through a doorway built for a tennis ball. That's roughly the mismatch our biology was suddenly dealing with. This is the exact standoff scientists call the pelvis-brain conflict, and evolution had 2 options: widen the hips and ruin our ability to walk efficiently, or shrink the brain and lose everything that made us dominant. It couldn't do both, so it did something else entirely. Evolution's workaround was almost sneaky. Kick the baby out early, way early. Most mammals wait until a baby's brain is fairly developed before birth. A newborn chimp, for example, arrives with a brain already close to half-grown, developed enough to grip onto its mother's fur within hours. If a human baby waited for that same level of brain development, pregnancy would need to stretch out for close to 2 years. And by then, the head simply wouldn't fit, not even close. So instead, human babies are sent out unfinished. A newborn's brain is only about a quarter of its full adult size. That's why a human baby can't hold up its own head, can't crawl, can't do anything except cry, and need constant care. We are, in a very real sense, born too early on purpose. It's not a mistake, it's the only way our heads could ever make it through. But being born early solved one problem and immediately created another. Here's the part that surprises most people. In most primates, the birth canal is a straight shot wide open the whole way through, so the baby comes out facing its mother, easy to catch and pull up. Human anatomy doesn't work that way. Because our hips are so tightly reshaped for walking, the birth canal actually changes shape halfway through the journey. Wide one way at the entrance, wide a completely different way at the exit. To get through that, a baby has to twist. The head enters sideways, rotates almost a full quarter turn mid-passage, and comes out facing away from the mother backward. That backward position isn't random cruelty from nature, it's mechanics. But it means a mother physically cannot reach down and guide her own baby out safely. Try, and you risk injuring the baby's neck or spine. So for basically all of human history, women could not reliably do this alone. And that single fact may have shaped who we are more than almost anything else. No other primate needs help to give birth. Humans, for almost our entire existence, have. That single vulnerability forced something remarkable: cooperation. Someone had to be there. A midwife, a mother, a sister, a friend, someone to help with that final turn, clear an airway, hold a trembling newborn steady. Some researchers argue this repeated life or death need for teamwork is part of what wired humans for deep social bonding and empathy in the first place. In other words, the danger of childbirth may not have just tested our species. It may have helped build the very thing that makes us human, our need for each other. There's one more piece to this puzzle, and it's not about bones at all. It's about fuel. Growing a large-brained baby costs an enormous amount of energy. Newer research points to something called the metabolic limit, basically, a ceiling on how much a mother's body can supply before it starts to strain under the load. Around the 9-month mark, that ceiling gets hit. It's not just that the baby's head is running out of room. The mother's body is running out of capacity to keep fueling that growth safely. So 9 months isn't a random number. It's two limits colliding at once, one built from bone, one built from biology's fuel budget. Even with all of that, evolution had one last card to play. A newborn skull isn't one solid piece. It's made of separate plates, connected by soft, flexible gaps. During birth, those plates are actually designed to shift and overlap slightly, letting the skull compress just enough to squeeze through. It's uncomfortable to picture. But it's also one of the most quietly brilliant tricks in human biology, a built-in shock absorber for the tightest moment of the entire process. So why didn't evolution ever fix childbirth? Because there was nothing broken to fix. This was never a flaw. It was a trade. Evolution had to choose between a body built for effortless walking and a brain built for language, tools, and everything else that makes us human. It couldn't have both without a cost. So it pushed both traits as far as they could go and left the bill at the door of every birth that's happened since. The danger, the pain, the need for someone else in the room, that's not evidence that our bodies failed us. It's proof of exactly how far evolution was willing to go to make us who we are. And honestly, that changes how you look at every birth story you've ever heard. If this blew your mind a little, that's exactly the point. Subscribe, because the human body has a lot more secrets like this one still to uncover.